I guess you get to see a little bit more scenery. Yeah, we're supposed to go east, right?
Yeah.
East. Okay, so there's two reasons for that. First of all, the sensor in my camera is a lot bigger than the sensor in this phone. In some ways, the sensor size does a couple of things. Okay, the sensor size does exactly one thing. It's essentially cropping the image. And cropping the image makes any odd effects worse. Odd effects such as the grain and the ISO.
Yeah.
ISO 100 on a phone camera is essentially the equivalent of ISO 1600 on my camera. An ISO of 1600 is what I would consider the upper ceiling for acceptable photos.
Okay.
You know, and then your phone, ISO 100, its basic ISO is what I would consider the upper ceiling.
Okay.
Second, the aperture of the phone camera. I would be impressed if the aperture of the camera was wider than f8. Do you know what the aperture is? Like what the number means?
No.
So the f-stop number tells you the ratio between the focal length, which is essentially the zoom of the camera, and how big the light gathering element is.
Yeah.
My telephoto prime lens is 300 millimeters. And its light gathering element is 77 millimeters in diameter. Yeah, diameter. 77 divided by 300 is, for all points and purposes, 4, which is why it's called a 300 millimeter f4 lens. You know, it just tells you how much light it's able to gather. And the cool thing is, f4 gathers the same amount of light regardless of what the focal length is.
Yeah.
If you expose an image properly at f4 and then attach a different lens with a different focal length and set that lens to f4 as well and take the same exposure, you will get the same exposure level in the photo. They'll just have gathered a different amount of the scene around you. Big telephoto lenses have to have massive front gathering elements because they're looking at such a small slice of the world.
Yeah.
Wide angle lenses don't really. The only reason that wide angle lenses appear to have big light gathering elements is because they gather light in an odd way that focuses the light in an odd way, but because of the way the lens itself is built, it loses a lot of this light. But it has to gather all this light in order to focus at all.
Yeah.
I don't understand the exact reasons behind it, but wide focal lengths are hard to achieve with DSLRs because the sensor is so far back in the camera. Mirrorless cameras can have a lot simpler low focal length lenses because the sensor is so close to the front of the camera. Anyways, so like I said, I would be impressed if the aperture in the phone is bigger, wider, or has a smaller f-stop number than f8. F8 is if you have a lens that is f8, your camera is going to have difficulty focusing.
Yeah.
Because it won't have enough light to be able to see very well. Phones get around this because they're essentially mirrorless cameras, which are in general less efficient. That's changing though with the current market as the algorithms get more and more sophisticated, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
And the third reason is bokeh. Bokeh is an isolating effect that you get solely by having a large light gathering element. You know, this also implies that having a smaller f-stop number gives you more bokeh, but my my 50 millimeters f1.8 lens actually has less bokeh than my 300 millimeters f4 lens, even though it's f1.8 versus f4.
Mm-hmm.
The f1.8 gathers more light compared to its focal length. The amount of bokeh that there is purely dependent on the size of the front gathering element, which for the 50mm 1.8 prime lens is about 35 millimeters, and for the telephoto prime lens is 77 millimeters.
Okay.
You know, it just completely trumps that. This one I'm not totally sure on, but I'm reasonably certain enough that I would imagine that the phone takes 8 megapixels. It has 8 megapixels to work with. You know, 8 million pixels that it takes a reference point for how bright the image is at that point.
Mm-hmm.
The camera has 24.2 megapixels. If you did a 100% crop of a 100% crop is where you slice off half the image vertically and slice off half the image horizontally.
Yeah.
You know, if you did a 100% crop on any photo that I take with the DSLR, you don't really damage the image quality that much as long as you're not shooting at absurd ISOs. You know, if you did the same to a phone image, you're already starting to run into a couple of issues. First of all, it's already heavily cropped because the sensor is so much smaller.
Yeah.
You know, so you're just cropping it further, which makes all the other problems it's already dealing with worse.
Mm-hmm.
The ISO grain noise just becomes completely out of control. If it's not very high megapixel, you might even start getting some pixelation with a 100% crop. But at 8 megapixels, you can do a 100% crop without suffering pixelation.
Yeah.
You know, which I'm not certain on this again, but I would guess that your phone takes 8 megapixels. But again, not certain on that.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
If you did a 300% crop, which means you leave only a quarter of the image on each dimension, that's where I would consider that you would start running into issues with a DSLR. You know, you're taking the resolution down from 6,000 by 4,000 to 1,500 to 1,500 1,000, which is workable, but it's not ideal.
Yeah.
You know, but if you did the same to a phone camera that was only 8 megapixels, you've essentially destroyed the image.
Yeah.
What you're left with is about a 900 kilopixel image. Like, I have to go down to kilopixels, which I'm not even sure that's even a word. It's probably kilopixels because, you know, kilometers instead of kilometers.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
If I was able to attach my big ass lens to your phone's tiny sensor, I'd have a ridiculous focal length. Like I think what I would end up with would be like 3,200 millimeters or something insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just something just absolutely ludicrous like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 40 millimeters is about what your eye sees. 70 millimeters is considered the threshold of telephoto.
Yeah.
Let's see, 300 millimeters. If I remember correctly, 450 millimeters, which is essentially my 300 millimeters becomes when it's attached to an APC sensor. The 450 millimeters gives you a range of arc of 1 degree on the radius. You know, if you take the exact center of the image and then the leftmost edge of the circle that you end up getting with the 300 millimeters, that angle is 1 degree.
Yeah. Whoa, look at that. Look at the river.
Yeah, 3,200 millimeters, give or take a couple hundred. You know, like I could probably isolate one of these bushes on the mountain I've had.
Yeah.
You know, it's a complete overkill.
It's an angry river.
I wouldn't say it's angry so much as it's waiting for a reason to be pissed.
Like it's waiting to eat somebody.
Also, how bad is the audio quality in those first couple of videos when the music's playing?
Oh, you know, I haven't really checked. I didn't get a chance to see them very much. I just was starting to look at them a little bit. So, yeah, the video camera is doing well with the lighting.
Yep, it's cranking up the ISO. Actually, it's cranking up the shutter speed, I would imagine.
Yeah. Wow, look at that. Look at the water there.
I don't know, we've had to crank up the ISO quite a bit too, though, I would imagine. I'd be probably taking 24 frames per second. Probably. Like this, like what we're talking about is what is essentially like $50 camera embedded in the phone,
Yeah.
and a $2,000 camera.
Mm-hmm.
At least when you include all the accessories I have.
Okay, now what are we doing?
One of the exits is closed.
Hanging Lake, exit closed.
gotten to either a wreck or is trying to set up a tow or something.
Okay.
Do not enter.
Not tip up.
Nice view of the tunnel, eh?
That's a beautiful tunnel. What can I tell you? Absolutely lovely. And if it weren't dark outside, I would see light at the end of the tunnel.
Actually, according to the phone, there's actually never mind. The light inside the tunnel is actually extremely warm. At least compared with out here. You could also say that, like, if you set the lighting at the inside of the tunnel to essentially your zero, the outside here, the lighting is cold, as in it's tinted blue.
Yeah.
And if you set the outside here to zero, the inside of the tunnel was tinted warm, or sort of a yellowy orange color. I don't know, if I was forced to guess, I'd say that's partly because the lights inside there just release a little bit more light in the yellow and orange spectrum, and that the overall lighting that we have here is tinted more blue just because the sun's not here. Time to disable the AC. That's funny, we drive through fewer tunnels on the way home than we do on the way there.
Yeah.
Straight from tunnel to it's pretty off center.
It's off center. Thank you.
I guess it doesn't matter too much. There's more to see on the right side anyways, I guess.
Oh, I think we're about at the end. This is the end of the canyon.
The end of the world as we know it.
No, don't say that.
Just getting a stick of gum.
What?
The dude driving in the car over there was getting out a stick of gum, and I just watched him. And then he turns and looks at me with this, like, fuck you looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. I don't know why, but generally speaking, when I pass someone while driving, I sneak a look at them just to get a look at them for no real reason.
Yeah, just long enough for it to be uncomfortable. He's like, get your own stick of gum.
Hey, Dum Dum, you got gum gum? No, this is my gum gum. You can't have it.
Hey, Dum Dum. You got gum gum? there are train tracks there, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot going on in this canyon.
Road, river, railroad.
Yeah, some places there's even electrical wires.
What a security camera. Bizarre place to put a camera, but I can't think of anything else that would be other than white, but why would it be black then?
Yeah. Oh yeah, now we're getting out of the canyon. All right, from here, yeah. You want to just turn the camera off?
Once we get around this bend.
Oh, once we get around the bend? Okay. Very well. What's the speed limit now?
Good question. My guess is it's going to be 95 miles an hour.
Oh, you really want me to get a ticket, don't you?
First, I guess I'd say 110 kilometers an hour.
110, huh?
All right,
Here we
look
go.
at that. I was right.
Thank goodness. And that canyon's a bit slow. And then they wait for you when you get out of the canyon. They wait for you to pull you over if you're speeding. This is right here. This is where they pull people over. They just wait for people to come. It's like flies.
Well, hey, look. It's now up to
75.
125 kilometers an hour.
Yay!
Well, is that all for the video?
Yeah, this from now on it's just
Got an empty player prairie.
hills from now on. Yeah, it's gonna. Yeah, go ahead and turn off.